Hello and welcome. My name is Rebecca Taylor, and you will be watching my technology portfolio that I made for my graduate course at California University of Pennsylvania, MSc 645. And this is all in preparation for me to receive my certification to teach secondary high school English. The activities that you're going to view demonstrate my ability to compile activities for my students using technology, to integrate technology into classroom activities. And I believe this will better engage my students and cater to the diverse learning styles as well as academic learning levels that my future students will possess. I hope you enjoy this portfolio, and if possible, I hope you gain some new knowledge out of it. Thank you. My first activity is an avatar, which is a computerized representation of a living being. It could be a person, it could be an animal. I've seen all kinds of avatars. An avatar can be used to express something that you want to tell your students, but you want to allow them to see things from a different perspective. So back to what an avatar is, it can really be molded to look like just about anything. And the feature that's really nice, I'm going to show you briefly, is that you can actually make your avatar speak for you. For this particular activity, I used the site Voki, Voki.com. It was very easy and simple to follow, but I believe that the Voki app would only allow me to do one or two avatars at a time, and there's a time limit on how long this avatar can speak. Let me see if I can get her to talk for you a little bit. Hi, my name is Rebecca Taylor, and I'm a student in the MAT program studying secondary English, and I will be student teaching this fall. I believe technology is an integral part of education for today's students. It really is a wonderful way to address all learning styles in the classroom, but it's not just the flexibility that technology will give me as a teacher. It will also give my students flexibility with the way they present information, because they will be then offered choices. So that was a little preview of what you can do with an avatar. Incidentally, that avatar was speaking to the integral part of technology in education, which is part of the reason I'm compiling this portfolio. Incidentally, you can hear that my voice is a bit rushed in that presentation, and I attribute that to the time restriction that Voki offers. So that's something to keep in mind if you use the Voki site. To make an avatar, that students or the teacher would be limited in how long they can speak if you're using the free trial version. So I have a few interesting ideas for using an avatar in my classroom, and that would be, as an example, to substitute my own voice, which is what you just witnessed. But I could make this even more engaging for the students, because I could create a wild looking avatar, and that could perk up the students' interests. So instead of listening to me give a lecture in front of the class, which I plan to do very infrequently, students would actually be watching and listening to an avatar. And that might make them feel like they were watching a show. So this would be in hopes to keep them more engaged in the material. I also like how we use the avatars in this situation to reply to a question. So I could use an avatar in my classroom, for instance, in a discussion board or on an online blog for the classroom. And that would allow shyer students to feel more comfortable participating in a discussion. There's a couple of other sites and tools that you could use to make an avatar. GoAnimate and Crazy Talk are two of the ones that I was browsing through. Those will also allow students to create an avatar, or myself, and those are a little bit more interactive with other. You could have multiple avatars, you could have them speaking together. I believe there's a little bit more playroom for the students to actually create their avatars with those other tools. And something that would be really interesting would be for students to highlight the main ideas of a text by using an avatar to tell each other or myself, yet again, on a blog or discussion board, or just pull it up in class and present it in front of the class. For instance, if we're studying Mark Twain, they could make an avatar look like Mark Twain, and they could have Mark Twain talk about the main ideas of his text. They could do the speaking, or they could use a digital voice, to speak as Mark Twain, and he could talk about why he chose to write the story. That would really help me check for understanding on the historical and biographical elements of the story that we're going to be reading. So I like that idea a lot. But also I wanted to point out that on GoAnimate, students can actually develop dialogue between characters. So that would be an interesting choice if we're working on writing our own dialogue, say for creative writing, or if we're going to write a short story. There's a lot of ways that students could use avatars to manipulate what they want to say through a digital representation. Hey, hello, welcome back. I am going to attempt to speak over this lovely music that is playing on this next activity, which is Kahoot. So, formative assessments are assessments that allow me to check for my students' actual understandings for what we're learning, as opposed to a summative assessment that's going to check simply for understanding of the learning. We're going to be checking for the understanding of the process of learning during a formative assessment, so I can see what my students need further work on or what I need to adjust in my future lessons. So for this, I have created a couple of quizzes that we could play around with in the classroom to show what they know, what they're weak on. Relatively speaking, though, these formative assessments are highlighting more of the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy as far as, recall, remembering, understanding. But it's still a good check-in instead of giving them a quiz that's a summative type quiz, which I don't believe in. I would rather have summative assessments be performance-based. So this is just a nice way to do something quick in class that I could put together. This one, I focused on the genre of American literature and the idea of realism. So this one deals with Kate Chopin's short story, Desiree's Baby. I'm just going to click on here to start it. You have to have the students put in on their phones or their iPads this number to join the game. So I'm going to do that on my own cell phone, which you can't see. I have to give myself a name. So I'll use my first name, and there we go. It says on my phone that I'm in, and we're going to start. So let me open the screen up here a little bit for you, if I can. I'm going to pause it. Okay, so as you can see here, here's a first question. What truth does Armand later discover in an old letter? And then the students could pick, but when they look at their phone, they're actually only going to see the color red with the shape, the triangle, or yellow with the circle, they're not going to get all the words. So this is going to make things a little bit tricky. So I'll say it's the red one. No, that's incorrect. Okay, so then the students on their phone would see that that is incorrect. And then we would move on. For me, as the teacher, I have to hit next. And then they would get the next question. Okay, so I just want to speak to this a little bit. I'm gonna let's see here. Pause. Okay, so I just clicked out of the game so we could chat here a little bit about the tool itself, Kahoot. So some of the pros are that it is a quick way to quiz the students on this low level information. And, you know, we could even put a question in there to spark up a discussion, something at the end that we could elaborate on for the rest of the period. And it's great. You can put in images, and we do know research study shows that the image connected with the material will help students absorb that and retain that knowledge. So it's nice that you can put images, and you could even, I believe, include video. Some students may enjoy this competitive angle that Kahoot uses with getting points and listing, you know, what student is in first place. And some students may get a kick out of the fact that their names are on the board. From what I've heard, this tool is used quite often in schools right now. So it might not be the most exciting thing. They might do it too much. And of course, anything too much is not going to create that same punch for engagement. Some of the cons are, first and foremost, Kahoot could be hard for students who have a hard time processing information quickly because of what I just showed you, where the symbol and the color of their phone, which you didn't get to see on the screen, but if you would play the game, the students are not seeing the actual question on their phone. That could make it hard for them to process the information and be able to find the answer on their phone. They're having to do it fast. It's being timed. There's some silly music in the background. So that might hinder their experience and create a disconnect from the actual material, which could make answering the questions confusing, and then the point of the quiz itself is lost. So I'm not a huge fan of this. I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's something I would like to use often, but it's something that definitely could be pulled out on occasion. Okay, this next tool is Quizlet, and this allows teachers and students to make more of a digital flashcard. And it has a few different ways to practice the material. So you can match things, which is located here. You could spell things out, use it like a flashcard. You can include images. It's really not a tool, though, to make multiple choice questions or true or false questions. It's really geared toward that flashcard use of remembering level of Bloom's taxonomy. So while some students may enjoy studying with this type of help, I personally prefer making flashcards by my hand because I actually need that pen to paper reinforcement of me writing my flashcards myself. So Quizlet is a tool that I think would be nice for students to use in their practice of studying skills and self-monitoring, but I don't think it's a tool that I would use to make the entire class do. It would be something I just recommend if students enjoyed this type of learning. I could have something up, an example that they could then create something like this themselves. But I wouldn't necessarily use it all the time because I think students need to use their own hands too. Just so you can see here. So I use literary elements. You've got the term, you've got the definition, and I did try and re-up this so I have capital letters where it is a sentence. Now, for instance, hubris, extreme pride, that's not a sentence, so I'm not going to use a capital letter there. It's just a definition, but ultimately we do want to reflect and model proper academic language, vocabulary, and grammar when we are putting these things out for our students. So that's one format, and I'll just show you one more here if it comes up. There's a game they can match. Here we go, like allegory. There you go. That one matches. And then they start disappearing, and it's hubris here. Come here. So there's a couple fun things.